Chrissy lives over Sulphur Run, correct? Yes. Which is probably one of the most contaminated parts of East Palestine. I was there in April, and my eyes were burning just over that creek. And we went into the house, I don't know, for 20 seconds, and I had to walk out. So just wanted to let people know who you are.
Yes. Well, I wanted to say that I definitely think that these attorneys should fire their PR firm, like I fired the lead attorneys, because the gaslighting that they are now giving these residents in this class action puts the EPA and Norfolk's gaslighting to shame that we've dealt with for a year and a half. So that is ridiculous to use that doctor and to look at these people and tell them that this is the best they could do. We've heard over and over from the DOJ, from the EPA, from the attorneys in the class. Norfolk's attorneys are really tough. Well, do you want us to take up a collection to get you a gym membership? Because you should toughen up. You're the Department of Justice. You should toughen up as lead attorneys that made a bunch of promises to residents to sign them up. So I just feel like they have the new award in gaslighting victims of this open burn and the derailment and the EPA cover-up. So, I mean, they're just added to our list. Definitely. They got first place now.
And just so you know, because there might, with everything, there's distraction and deflection and bullshit on all sides, and there's going to be EPA people who maybe respond to this trying to discredit George or trying to discredit me or whatever. But this ain't my first rodeo. And the bottom line is there's a historical record of the EPA, shall we say, not being the most transparent with the public. I give you the Flint water crisis, which is ongoing 10 years later. To be clear, it's still a crisis in Flint. I don't want them to be the next Flint. That's why I'm here. So the EPA knew, in the case of Flint, that the Michigan Environmental Department was not adding the proper corrosion control chemicals into the water, and they did not notify the residents. They just hid behind bureaucracy and emailed each other, but they did not take action to notify the residents. The EPA knew there was a massive outbreak of Legionnaire's disease in Flint. That's the deadly waterborne bacteria. They did not notify the residents. They did not. What is the point of having a federal government if the state government is doing wrong and you don't step in? What is the point? I don't want to have a debate between federal government and states' rights. This is about life or death, not federal government or states' rights. This is about children. You heard reproductive problems. There might be women who cannot have children now. So what is the point? Why did the EPA allow Norfolk Southern to control the emergency response here? I have sources on the ground who have told me Norfolk Southern was calling the shots the night of the fire, not the fire chief, who was out of town at the time. So the point is, there is a historical record of the EPA either looking the other way as corporations manipulate data or state environmental departments. Hell, I know from the case of Flint, the EPA sent testers in to test Flint residents' water, and they tested the water in the afternoon when it was already in use. You're not supposed to test water. It's supposed to be stagnant for 6 hours, and then you put the sample bottles in. The EPA went into residents' homes and were testing the wrong way. So you could say, oh, they're intentionally corrupt, or they're just a bunch of fucking idiots. Who knows? But the point is, the EPA has been on the ground here. If Mark Durno is watching, he's with the EPA, and they're basically telling residents, don't believe your lying skin. Don't believe your lying pee out of your blood. Don't believe your burning eyes. Don't believe the tingling on your lips, the tingling through your bodies. if you're the 18-year-old I interviewed, don't believe the seizures you're having. You were healthy before. If you're the 66-year-old man who was fine before this, sorry you got double breast cancer, but hey, there's no proof it's from this. I mean, I could go down the list. So I'm not saying this, to have a pep rally. I'm saying this because there's conspiracy theorists, and then there's just common sense and obvious. And the reason I really value going on the ground to places, and it's very expensive. And by the way, that's not what makes money. If you want to be a journalist and make money, you don't go to East Palestine or Flint. I can tell you that. But the reason I value going on the ground is because it's one thing to talk to people on the phone or do interviews remotely. It's another thing when you go somewhere and experience it yourself. I came here for the first, Lewis, my colleague, came here 5 times and did great work. But I came here in April. Within 2 minutes of walking into a home, I had a splitting headache. I got a lot of problems, but I don't get headaches. I had a splitting headache within 2 minutes of walking into a home. Stella, where is she? A mile from the derailment, maybe less. I had a massive headache. Then, when we interviewed Stella and her husband, I asked them to turn the, what was that, John? The fan off and all that? The air purifiers off, because it was picking up on the audio, so it would have distorted the interview. You couldn't hear her. She turned off the fan. My headache went from like a 6 out of 10 to a 12 out of 10. I felt delirious. Like, did I just have 3 shots of whiskey? They're living there. I get to leave. Meanwhile, the EPA is telling everything's fine. By the way, we found that the EPA, they acknowledged their testing equipment is not capable of finding low levels of chemicals. Norfolk Southern, when they were testing, they were using measurements and equipment for industrial disasters, like in a warehouse and a factory, not like testing the air outside. I mean, I could go down the list. I found a few weeks ago, where the hell is the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette? Where is the Cleveland Plain Dealer? Where is the New York Times, the Washington Post? I found that the EPA here found vinyl chloride in the soil and just forgot to tell you. They didn't tell anyone that they found vinyl chloride. And they found vinyl chloride in the soil, I don't know when. They told me early spring. Well, what does that mean? They told me it was low levels. I asked them, can you provide the levels? Nope. And I know for a fact that other reporters, including the Associated Press, by the way, confirmed my story. They confirmed that it was accurate. I had text messages, I had the EPA confirming they found it, but no other media outlet reported it. What else are you working on that's more important than the federal government literally, after telling these folks for a year and a half, we're not finding the toxic, cancerous gas that we detonated, that they found it and then didn't? That's called a cover-up. I'm just at a loss. I mean, Flint was bad, and I stay on Flint. But this is like a mini Chernobyl here. I mean, that's basically what the toxicologist was telling you. And the media is not covering it anymore. What is Norfolk Southern, like, pay your bills if you're a journalist? Not exceptions can be made. We have a local journalist here. But it's just astounding. I know if you're a journalist, you have to eat and you have to feed your kids, but go do something else to feed your kids if you're going to bury this. Because you're literally burying people. You are allowing people to be slowly poisoned. And it's not slowly. Listen, I'm not a doctor. I can't say cause and effect, but it's pretty unusual for men to get breast cancer. What is it? 1 out of 800?
1 out of 833.
1 out of 830 men get breast cancer. Wayne got double breast cancer and had to have a double mastectomy. And he's got other problems now, too, symptoms-wise. And frankly, call me a conspiracy theorist. I think it's common sense. I think Norfolk Southern wants to settle as quickly as human possible before all of you have cancer and their bill goes way the fuck up.